In the season finale of the GN in 1970, we couldn't help but do a little rail fanning. Take a look at coupler heights and how to fix the issues. Dabble in a little bit of airbrushing? And we try to avoid the unavoidable. And Colin Bohannon answers a viewer's question of the week. And we cover all this on this episode of the GN in 1970. As we kick off the finale to the GN in 1970, what better than to do a little rail fanning? We're going to start in Osseo, Minnesota to see the local passing through. The lead unit is a GP50, former Santa Fe 3822. It is now BNSF 3175. It was originally built in 1981. While the trailing unit is a GP39-2, again another Santa Fe unit, former 3668. It was built in 1975.
Could you speed it up a little?
This line parallels County Road 81, and it can be seen here crossing 93rd Avenue North. Yes,
where is that?
It's just northwest of Minneapolis in the city of Osseo, Minnesota. As this train can actually traverse as far as Albertville, it's working eastbound either from Albertville or Rogers, but it can make itself all the way up to Monticello, where they actually remove nuclear rods out of the nuclear power plant. I ran on foot to 85th Avenue North to catch these guys crossing here. As this train continues to work its way east, they're going to work their way past the switch, throw it, and then shove themselves back west to hook onto their train.
Can we turn down the dingin'? It's driving me nuts.
Well, I've heard guys say that railroading can be romantic, and, well...
I think this is a little bit too much.
Alright, I think we got to bring back the sound. Can you dial it back up again? One thing I'd like to key in on here is listen to the locomotives and actually how quiet they are.
If that crossing bell wasn't dinging constantly, this would actually be kind of a peaceful moment.
Timeout, did you see 2785's number boards? Now you want to talk about funky, take a look at the way they stick out. That is not original to a GP39-2 built in 1975. We were told by a former BNSF employee that that's actually where they store some of the computerized components on these locomotives.
I'd actually beg to differ. I bet you that's where he stores his lunchbox.
Well, as these guys finish up their work, they're going to actually shove this train further west, and, well, I actually had to get to work, so I didn't have time to find out what was happening, but we might as well take a look at how some guys run their model railroad.
Wait for it.
Legendary!
As these guys go racing west, you're going to end up finding out that we actually filmed this next to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
Let's go racing, boys! Boogity, 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 boogity!
The SL-144 were unique birds with a center cab. One might think these are miniature Baldwin knockoffs that were powered by two 6-cylinder 550 horsepower Cummins KTA 1150L diesel prime movers.
Did you get all that?
Nope.
Both units were returned by the BN to GE after only a short time. BN 1101 ended up as AEPX 1101. Which merger road originally owned these? Was it A, SPNS, B, NP, C, GN, D, CB&Q, or E, none of the above? We'll find out later in this episode. Here's one of the most common problems in HO scaling, and it is easily rectified. I know you want to be a prototype modeler, but it's not prototypical to, well, Well, thanks a lot, Bob Rivard. You captured something prototypical that we don't want in the modeling world, and that's mismatched couplers. How do you resolve this? It's actually fairly easy. By going to horn hooks. No, that'd be the worst idea ever. Get away from the horn hooks. Get away from these pieces of junk that Atlas came out. And then these wannabe KDs? Yeah, they're wannabes. Look like KDs? They're not. They're junk. Get rid of them. Put in the KDs. This is the real deal. We standardized to KDs, and why? Well, it's easy. You want to raise the coupler? Get an underset shank. You want to lower the coupler? Get yourself an overset shank.
They have all these different couplers?
You bet they do.
Game changer.
They make things a lot easier. You want to have a shortened coupler? Get the short overset. You can drop it and bring it in. You want to have a longer coupler? Go ahead and get number 146. You can go to 147 for a medium overset, but you can also get just the standard to replace the number 5. 148, no spring. It's a whisker coupler. One thing I highly recommend in standardizing your fleet is getting a coupler gauge. This is a number 205, which is an all-metal. The 206 is just an insulated version. Either way, it keeps things on the same playing field and making sure that they're all the same height. We're just going to show you an example here. You pop the screw out, remove it. There is the copper flat plate spring, which we're going to eliminate by using the number 148, which has those 2 wires. That's called a whisker coupler. That helps center the coupler. As you can see here, we're going to test it against once we've got it put on. And it sits snug, it's nice, it's the right height. Beautiful, perfect, we're going to run with it. As you can see, there's a lot of different options that KD offers. It is definitely going to help standardize your fleet and smooth out operations. So we do use magnets on the GN 1970, especially in those hard to reach areas. This is a KD number 146 on the lead to be able to make sure the long shank doesn't hit the coupler. I think we're doing pretty good here.
That's what you're going to think.
Number 148s on these, they seem to be working pretty good.
And I'm thinking, no.
Well, they all check out. Coupler heights are good. You happy?
Yeah.
Tick-tock, it's that time. We're answering the question of which merger road originally owned the SL144. Did you guess? It's E, none of the above. Do you know which road? If you guessed the Chicago Northwestern, you'd be right. Number 1199 was built November 1978. For a period of 2 years, this locomotive and 1198 tested on the Chicago Northwestern before going to the BN. Well, there you have it. Now you know a little information about the SL144 that you can store up on that little walnut of yours. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of this episode. So here's something I've always been intimidated to dive into, and that is airbrushing. One of the key things that you want to have is the proper ventilation. Thanks a lot to Greg Smith for pointing out this particular model of a spray booth that is portable. It is compact and very easy to work with. This is the model number. You can look it up if you really want to buy one. I highly recommend it. And why? Because it's simple, it's compact, and easy to be able to put away. It comes with a little lazy Susan.
Sorry, Susan, I didn't name it after you.
These are the 2 primers that I primarily use, and that would be a white and a gray Tamiya primer. The difference here is when you lay it down, if you lay down white, the color that you lay over it, it's going to be pretty bright. If you lay down the gray and you lay a color over it, it's going to knock it down a little bit. So it does shift the tonality of the paint you are applying to the model. And then I end up baking the primer coats in between. I do this for the final coat as well. I set the oven to 200 degrees and I run it for about 2 hours. I do have to set the timer because this is a toaster oven to 30 minutes, and I do that, well, 4 times if I'm going to do it for 2 hours. Simple math. Fairly simple and straightforward process. Just bakes and helps cure the paint, and I end up kind of liking the technique, so I do it between all layers of paint. Speaking of tones, you can hear the tone in so many different people's voices when they're talking about the Great Northern's Big Sky Blue.
That one's too light.
That one's too dark.
This one's not quite right.
It's a little bit brighter.
That's not how I remembered it.
Well, what we're looking at here are some models painted by none other than Mr. Jeff Lemke himself. He painted it in 3 different tones because, as we know, things do age, things do fade, and things do shift. As far as this color is concerned, I think Jeff's got it dialed in. Do check out jefflemketrains.com to see some of the work he's done. If you ever want to learn more about the actual railroad itself, you can go to the railroads of the Lake Superior region, and Jeff covers content in depth. And here's a great example, actually, of a Great Northern in Big Sky Blue. Thanks a lot, Jeff. Now, in researching these GN cabooses, I end up turning to none other than, well, that book I refer to all the time, one of Scott Thompson's 3-volume set of the Great Northern equipment. You can page through these babies and find just about any caboose that the Great Northern had, and no, not every single one, but darn near. I dialed into this set and was able to determine which one I want to model. The blue of choice here is a true color paint. It is going to be GN Big Sky Blue. That is TCP051. In case you're taking notes, what we're looking at here is getting it all ready. I shake it up real well to make sure the paint is mixed. I clean up the lid as well as the top of the container, and then I use a pipette and put it into the cup of the airbrush.
Oh, lordy, I spilled there.
Looks like we christened the airbrush booth with a little blue.
What we're doing here is doing a spray out just to make sure the consistency of the paint is what we like. I do use the thinner TCP015 to be able to thin the paint just slightly. You want it the consistency of, I believe it's skim milk.
Don't drink it.
Unless you're Joe Binish, he has a bulletproof tank.
I got to thank Joe Binish for his encouragement as well as information regarding airbrushes. Thanks, Joe. What we're looking at on these airbrushes, this is a dual stage. Means you push the button down, you get air, you pull the button back, and you get paint with the air. This is a single stage. I end up switching over to the single stage because I had spattering taking place from the original dual stage airbrush. Nonetheless, we end up completing these projects, getting them sprayed out, and moving them along. That is what is key. And then I look at this and I think, oh, this ain't so bad. I might as well paint up all three. So I kept shooting all the cabooses, getting them all done. As you can see here, nearing the end.
Smoking.
All right, we're set up to shoot the black on the ends. I mask it all off, and the paint that I use is true color. I end up using black. This is going to actually be a flat black, TCP805. We're going to shoot this up. I end up masking it off using blue painter's tape, but in the yellow corners that you see on the bottom, I end up using the Tamiya masking tape, which works quite well.
Thanks, Andy Dorsch.
What I end up doing here is adding a lot of thinner to be able to thin this out because the black paint wasn't clearly sealed. It started to dry out, it started to gel, and that's not great. I did paint the underframe, I did paint the trucks, and what do you do once we get all this stuff painted up? I think you guessed it. You get the trend and you're following along. We get it baked. An element that often gets overlooked is actually airbrush maintenance. One of the things I'm looking at here is a Badger airbrush that was from my grandpa's collection and, well, needs a little love. Needs to be cleaned. And that's one key element, not even just when you finish painting it, make sure you shoot your thinner through it. But look at this here, the foam is starting to let go. You'll find this similar thing happen to brass models. So do check any of your airbrushes or old models because this foam has, well, it's gone to pot. It's no good. It's shot. We need to replace it, and, well, there are a lot of different techniques to be able to store items, and in this case, this stuff isn't the place to be storing it, because I think it's only going to get worse, but hey, what do you see here? We got a wrench. We find a great way to be able to clean these things, and it's something you don't normally think of. Yeah, that's right. It's aluminum foil. You think aluminum foil to clean an airbrush?
Okay, I'm listening, but my eyebrows raised.
As you sit there thinking, you can't go metal on metal. Well, we are here. I learned this from American Restoration. They end up using this as a technique to be able to clean pitted or slightly rusted chrome. And I thought, well, this is chrome and it works out well. I've used it on bicycle tires, motorcycle tires, a lot of different chrome elements. And as you can see, the results speak for themselves. It does work. The bowl has just a little bit of vinegar in it. And of course, the tin foil, it does the trick. It does the job. It polishes this thing up. And as hesitant as one might be to actually use this technique, I've used it so many times and not ever had an issue. It doesn't scratch the surface. I was pleased. Maybe throw that into your toolbox.
I'm still skeptical.
You would be.
As we continue to finish cleaning up this airbrush, is one thing to keep in mind whenever working on a project like this. Don't lose the parts.
Well, that seems like a no-brainer.
What you want to make sure is that you keep tabs on every little piece, what direction, where it goes. Airbrushes are fairly self-explanatory to put together, but if you've never done one, you could be lost. What we've got here is just a basic shop towel. This is temporary storage, but that at least takes care of the airbrush for now. You done shoot about as good as you model.
Alright, this is Cullen's question of the week. Do you use Jammerai? Use a little program or do you use CVs? I'll tell you right now, using CVs, you're basically riding around on a donkey. Really slow. Using a little program, or at least you're moving along. You're getting yourself in a little Volkswagen. But if you're using Jammerai, well, I don't need to tell you anything. You got it figured out. It's the way to go. Cullen's out.
Well, that concludes the finale of the GN in 1970 Season 2. I want to give a huge thanks to those that have hit subscribe, that have rung the bell, as well as hit like and made comments. All of those things together help spread this hobby, so I appreciate all of those that do. If you want to see other episodes of the GN in 1970, you can pop over to the channel, as well as see episodes of Sue the Milwaukee Road, the tour of the GN in 1970, and even various tours that we've been doing of fellow modelers around the area. Thanks a lot for watching.
70.